Hey ladies, it's me, Mocha Mommy here, bringing you another video. And as much as I would love to create like an edited video that has like slides and receipts and things that I thought, because I was in fact working on an edited video on this topic, it's going to be called Kansas City Shuffle Part 2. Um, I basically wanted to talk about the Andrew Tate verdict and how I think it's just going to change social media forever. I think that it's we talk about cancel culture going too far. And in some ways, I think there might be some validity to that. But I think that we're going to create a class of people who are going to be uncancelable. Um, so, hey, ladies, Love It Up Single Mom, she's here in the chat. Definitely check out her channel. So I think that it's going to create a class of people who are not cancelable anymore. I think we kind of remember when like James Franco got canceled, even though he had kind of like that cult film with Room and Pineapple Express. We saw Louis C.K. get canceled. We saw Jeremy Piven get canceled, only to be found like not liable after that. I mean, we saw, of course, Harvey Weinstein, of course, but he clearly was guilty. We saw so many people get canceled and still not really come back as a result of cancel culture. But now we're going to kind of come into this class of people who can't be canceled because they've created this silo and this cult following that no matter what you say, they're not going to get canceled. So I did, in fact, I was really working on some content because there's a lot of discussions now that we're having Republicans come into the race. And I'm not going to give too much away about it, but a lot of Republicans coming into the Republican primaries for the upcoming election in 2024. And you're seeing like a lot of these manosphere content creators be pulled onto somewhat reputable, pretty reputable right-wing journalists podcast platforms. Number one, so those right-wingers can build up their platform because they know the manosphere audience and know that they sit and watch things, that they engage. They're highly engaged, right? They will follow these guys to the ends of the earth, even if these guys are changing their tune on these podcasts. Because the video that I'm working on kind of was Andrew Tate and Myron Gaines on the Patrick Bet David platform. He has Valuetainment, which does like little short, consumable bite-sized videos. And then he has the PDP podcast, which has longer form conversations about business and politics and things like that. So what I find so interesting is when you sit down and listen to these manosphere guys in their entirety, they really reveal that they don't think very highly of their audience. They really do not think that their audience is smart. They don't promote their courses, their books, anything on these platforms, on these more legitimate platforms, simply because they know that they are serving an audience who would never do their due diligence. Also, I think what's interesting, especially about Patrick Bet David, I'm going to get back to Andrew Tate. He had a 5-hour interview with Andrew Tate. And so here we have Andrew Tate, an American citizen by birth, I think, but grew up in England, lives in Romania. But you see Patrick Bet David asking him a lot of questions about the upcoming American election, particularly about candidates Trump and DeSantis, right? Like, why would we care what somebody who doesn't even vote in America? Why would we care what he thinks? Simply because Patrick Bet David, who is a businessman, a California-based businessman who relocated his businesses to Florida for tax reasons, I really believe that he says it in not so many words, because I've been following him for quite a while. He's one of the guys who have stepped into the vacuum. I'll leave a link in the description box for that video. But basically, Pat David is a contributor to the Republican Party, particularly to Ron DeSantis's platform. And I think that even if Trump ends up getting the nomination, I'm pretty sure that he probably is donating to both candidates. It's kind of the same way Trump did, right? He voted to he supported Rick Perry in his run for president, but also gave money to Hillary Clinton. And I really think that that's what Patrick Bet David is. He's a Republican contributor, and he's interviewing Manosphere guys during these primaries. He knows that these guys are pretty smart. Myron Gaines is a pretty smart guy. You know, graduated out of Northwestern, did crew, was owned several properties. So he's a smart, you know, has worked for the federal government. So he's a smart guy in some ways. Same thing, Andrew Tate, pretty smart, pretty charismatic, but they know that their audiences are dumb. They know that their audiences are very impressionable, which is why they can sell books and courses that have not proven themselves, right? That are unproven, because they know that their audience is probably not going to do it. You know, so you'll hear Andrew Tate talk all day about not playing video games and about being a man of worth and having health. But at the same time, he really did come to fame Twitch, which is basically a gamer streaming platform. Like so much of his Hustlers University. So what is all this? And you know, he's talking so much about you guys don't need to watch porn, but yet he was very much into the adult entertainment industry. Much of the content that he put out there, especially what he put on TikTok, really did borderline on that whole adult market. You know, he talked a lot about his experience in the adult market, you know, and so, but yet he's saying that, well, if you're a masculine, you need to not be. And if we're being honest, one of the reasons why he was canceled was not because what he says. A lot of it had to do with copyright. And I remember speaking about this before, that a lot of his content, especially the productivity stuff, was stolen from the more prominent productivity gurus. You know, Lewis Howes, Alex Hermosi, James Clear, whoever that guy is who does the Stoic content. I forget his name's Robert Greene, and Tim Bilyeu. I think that's how you pronounce it, the impact theory guy. So a lot of that content was stolen, like the productivity stuff. But there's a reason why that productivity stuff never really went viral in the way that Tate went viral, because it was the misogyny, right? It was the misogyny. And so if you blame everything on women and hate women, to tell that to an unproductive crowd who probably wasn't being marketed to begin with, right? I mean, a lot of these people don't market their stuff to unproductive people, people who don't own businesses, who are or underemployed. People don't really market those products to that group. And I think that you're going to see a lot of intersectionality with what's happening with Tate, where the Republican Party is going to be trying to get these votes from, and then also too with this whole thing with Reddit, where this is a very, very vocal audience, is a very engaged audience, but it's not very profitable, right? So, and they kind of remind me of like, geez, I'm trying to not sound elitist when I say this. The crystal meth demographic further east of Austin, east and west of Austin. Okay. There was a hospital that was built out there, right? In this rural area. And it was basically built as a result of Medicaid expansion, i.e. Obamacare. Okay. So a lot of these people were right leaning. A lot of these people had horrible things to say about Obama. A lot of these people were like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, blah, 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 not realizing that the whole reason why that healthcare system even existed and even broke ground in that area was because of Medicaid expansion, basically Obamacare. Obamacare built that hospital. And now that it's being dismantled, that hospital is barely staffed. They're using a lot of telemedicine. They're closing a lot of services. A lot of the auxiliary suites that were supposed to be built won't be. So they kind of voted in their own worst interest. And I think that that's what's going to happen to a lot of these Manosphere followers. right? Their content creators don't think highly of them, and the people who are going to exploit them don't think highly of them. That's clear because from the CEO of Reddit, it's very clear. So my first experience with Andrew Tate, why they're called the Tater Tots, is basically it was the PTA at my kid's school. So my kids go to private school, and their school got caught up in the college admissions controversy. Okay, so after they get caught up in this, they've been real strict. Like they're talking about not allowing senior quotes in the yearbook or not having senior prank. They've gotten like overly strict. They course corrected overly strict. Okay. I think it's definitely a contributing factor as to why my daughter felt she needed a gap year. Just the overcorrection that this private school took. So basically, a group of disruptive middle school boys were quoting Andrew Tate, and a letter was sent out to parents, and you know, even though words were not bad words, they were like you'd be subject to disciplinary action. So if you would say, "What color is your Bugatti?" you'd get in trouble. So basically, and one of the ways that they were able to kind of really bring that law down was because you had this school has a pretty pretty well so its contributors, some of the biggest contributors to the school are alumni of a certain private college here in Texas, right? So a lot of their colleagues, wives, daughters work at this school simply because of their connections. So if one of them gets disrespected by a tater tot, they're going to be consequences. They're going to deal with that. They're going to be like, they're not going to be middle school teachers in public schools, right, where they can't really do much about words, but they're going to handle it. They're going to handle business. They're not going to about to have their daughter getting disrespected as a teacher there when they've contributed hundreds and thousands of dollars to the school. That's not what's going to happen. So it's just very interesting to see how wealthier, influential people deal with these types of things. They either kind of exploit that audience or they ignore it. And I'm saying that to you ladies because I see that there's a lot of pushback against dusty rhetoric, but a lot of you ladies realize that a lot of these things. I'm hoping that this makes you realize that a lot of these things they resolve themselves, because a lot of the problems that you ladies have with dusty men, powerful men have those same exact problems. Okay, we had a recent Tate follower fired from my job. And he wasn't fired for following Andrew Tate, because we've had a couple of security guards who had complaints, and then basically the contract company didn't send them again. Same thing with some of the janitors, because we have a few contract janitors. If they said something that was offensive, that was Tate-ish, people would complain, and then the contract company would not send that person anymore. So this particular one was actually a nurse, and he was on the wrong side of a divorce. But when the new charting system rolled out, he was very against it. He didn't like women in leadership. He didn't like, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that he was going through a divorce. And I don't know how messy it got. I don't think a lot of men claim these things come out of left field when we all knew she was unhappy for a long time. We unhappy working with him. But it came to a head when the charting system got updated, and he just refused to do it because he just didn't want to listen to the female administrators, the female leadership, because he was mad, right? He was just mad at women. And if you guys want to learn more about electronic charting, e-charts, things like that, check out the channel Computer and Coin. She does talk a lot about how that's the next wave in healthcare and how it could be very profitable the more well-versed you are, and the more learned you are in that field of computers and healthcare. Okay, so check her channel out. But so basically, he just was refusing. He was really refusing, and he put his heels in the sand. And then eventually, he just got in trouble and written up and fired because his charting was always off. His charting was always wrong, and he was just very anti-woman at that time, working with predominantly women, and in a female-dominated field, and with female leadership being all the more visible because we were converting to a new system. So he ended up losing his job. And I feel like this is happening a lot. My oldest daughter works in the food service industry. And she says the worst people to work with, in the food service industry are men above the age of 22. Right? Why is that? Well, a lot of times they didn't get into the workforce early enough. Like they didn't start at 15, 16 like some people. And they also didn't go to college. So what happens is you get these guys who, she has a 24-year-old coworker who is probably the bane of her existence. He is a subordinate because she has like a leadership position at her job now. And he is just really angry all the time. And it got worse. It came to a head during graduation season because it turned out that he is 24 years old. His mother is saying that by 25, you will be out of my house. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not paying extra rent for you to have a room. I'm going to downsize and you're going to have to get out. I have to focus on my retirement and I can't support a 25-year-old man anymore. So you need to get out. So this guy is somebody who's never held a full-time job before. He did not go to school because he felt that college was for idiots. He did Hustlers University thinking that he was going to make all this money and clearly didn't. And so now he's in food service just trying to figure something out because he's about to get kicked out of the house. And he's just a miserable person to work with, because he's starting to see, his friends came back for graduation and one of them was, I think, graduated and was something like some kind of insurance adjuster, making really good money. Another one went into like the finance industry, got a pretty decent job, and they're not going to be coming back to the Austin area. They're staying closer to Dallas where they got a job. Another one was in San Antonio, in the skilled trades, is doing really good with that. And then some of his coworkers, his colleagues who did in fact get into the workforce early, they're still maybe working like retail or food service, but they're in leadership positions and they're earning more and they're salaried and they're more on the other side of it. They're on the management side or the distribution side because they've paid their dues. And this guy has pretty much played video games and watched Andrew Tate and the like for all these years and is just mad at women and mad at his mom for kicking him out, mad at the fact that he never got a girlfriend, but never does anything. And just, these are his followers, he's, as much as he would like to think that he is being marginalized because of his thoughts on COVID and his thoughts on the Matrix, the reality is he has an audience full of unproductive men, unproductive video game playing, not economically viable men. And the products that he's selling them is not going to do well. 65% of business is relational. And if you're lonely and by yourself, there's no way you're going to be making money online. No, I understand, that there are online opportunities to make money. So it's just sad that this little boy, I can't say little boy, that this young man got caught up in that. And I think Mango Peel is right. They know that they're not meant to be taken seriously, but the reality is they have a very, very large platform and a growing presence. And we're starting to see that even though that they're big in numbers, they're not profitable. And that's going to be what the problem is. This is why they can't move to Parler or the other platforms that have like a paywall. Like they can use the free platforms, and now that the free platforms see that they're not profitable, like for instance, a lot of Manosphere followers don't create a lot of AdSense dollars because their followers are not buying the products. So yeah, it's just very interesting. And they're very easily exploitable for like their labor, right? Andrew Tate was able to proliferate a lot of their non-productivity to be productive for him. Basically free social media management. Reddit too, these Reddit moderators. They're basically been doing a job for free. And then the CEO of Reddit is like, hey, I'm going to take away your moderator status. And then they fell in line. Many of them, especially the gaming guys. Like, hold on, you're working for free anyway. This moderator status is so important to you. You're not even being paid for it. You're giving free labor to this platform. And now this platform wants to clean up so that they can get access, so they can create ad dollars, right? I mean, yeah, it's just an interesting time. And Mango Peel, you are right. The trash does continue to take itself out. And that's one of the reasons why, ladies, I try to not get into like the dusty debates or things like that. Like the whole thing with like the Peef Network and all these like dusty debates, like typically they like Mango Peel says, they take them out, right? I will have another panel, but it's going to be on things like emotional labor and like mental wellness and mental well-being. I'm working with another content creator on that. So yeah, I just think that we're going to just start to see, and I remember seeing it too in my life, like Manosphere content cutting off economic opportunity for the follower, not so much for the content creator, but for the follower. Like the whole like ADOS thing, non-ADOS thing that was going around being weaponized. When I was an allied health instructor, right? Okay, you jumped on these ideologies, but then you forgot who was the hiring manager for Hospital X. Right? You forgot who the connects were, who was the charge nurse on these floors. So you can hold fast. You can die on that hill if you want to, but if there's a Jamaican lady who's running human resources for Hospital System Y, and they're right now searching through social media, is now part of the application process. Just be careful what you say. Like, because last time I checked, this particular content creator, he wasn't hiring nobody. He wasn't hiring, especially not at the rate that some of these hospitals were paying, not to mention the fact that you invested in your education. And, I just think that this whole like tater tot thing and the next video that I'm working on, I just really see it as like a real big grift that the Republicans especially are going to use on these guys. They're going to get them to vote, right wing, because, Donald Trump, I think January 6th, and Donald Trump definitely, he had a lot of influence, now how do we get these guys to go for a candidate that Republicans can control, I think Patrick Bet David is on that job, right? And it was very interesting because I watched the 5-hour interview. I watched it in its entirety because I wanted to put it in the context with this video. I also watched the video that Patrick Bet David did with Myron Gaines of Fresh and Fit, who ended up showing up late, by the way. Very interesting. He showed up late. It was real interesting how you can tell these dudes don't think highly of their audience, and you can just tell how they're just going to be getting pimped by these Republican contributors. They're going to be used for their engagement, like that lady Jedediah who used to be on The View. I can guarantee you she is trying to parlay this podcast into like some kind of press secretary job or public relations job for some high level powered level Republican. Like she's you can just see the grift happening. You can see Patrick Bet David when he was saying, hey, when the verdict comes down, text this number and then I will release to you exclusive content. And I can guarantee you all of those people who text into that number and who subscribe, I can almost guarantee you they'll be getting robocalls for fundraising for Republican candidates. I almost did it just to prove myself right, because I can almost guarantee you they're going to be getting a lot of robocalls because he's going to sell that list to people who probably to some super PAC. So yeah, I really do think that that's the grift that's the grift that I see. And I'm gonna probably put that prediction in a video, and I'm gonna leave receipts because when I'm gonna be right, y'all gonna see Mocha Mommy said that. Mocha Mommy did say that the Republican Party is gonna pretty much pimp these manosphere guys for votes because elections are so close now. And one of the things that Trump did was got a lot of people who didn't normally vote to vote. And I think that the manosphere has a tap into that market. These guys who don't normally vote because they probably don't normally work. They probably don't normally have any, you know what I mean? And their opinions are very malleable. They've proven to not do their due diligence when it comes to like the courses and the books that they're being sold by these guys. Um, it's just they can, because again, Roe versus Wade really took a lot of votes away, took a lot of wind out of the Republican sail. So you got to get some misogynist men to bolster you up, right? But the red wave was nothing but a trickle because of Roe versus Wade. Hold on. Mango peel, very good. I was just at a baseball game recently too. But yeah, like you said, like a lot of very productive men have the same exact problems that you ladies do with dusty men. Like they have the same problems: the lack of productivity, the lack of accountability, the poor emotional intelligence, the poor communication, the lack of timeliness, professionalism, the lack of courtesy, the lack of the same issues that you guys are having, business owners are having, men in leadership are having. A lot of the same problems you're having with these type of guys. But if you are able to leverage that, what should I say? That nihilism, that disenfranchised feeling, that victim mentality. If you are able to monetize that, we've seen haven't we seen girls do it, like pearly things and all that. We've seen people able to monetize that discontentment. So yeah, I definitely think, and another thing too, I didn't know if you ladies realize this is also going to be in the video, but a lot of those ladies who sit on the panels of Fresh and Fit, I don't know if you ladies knew this or not, but did you know they get like a 30% boost in their like subscription, like their OnlyFans subscriptions? Like I found that super interesting how, yeah, like they'll get like a 30% boost. So yeah, it's true, Myron might be yelling at them and kick them off, but they know that audience is going to subscribe to their OnlyFans. They know that they're going to follow them on Instagram and get them boosted in that algorithm. So as much as these guys want to say that they hate women like that, the reality is they pay women like that. So it just is real interesting. I just wanted to put it down on video real quick before I made like it official, because it's just going to be, we're going to see a huge change. We're going to see a huge grift. We're going to see a big Kansas City shuffle. And I don't know. I just want to get it recorded. I want to get it down to make sure that I said it. So you guys are going to know. Because, I'm a middle-aged Black woman. Don't nothing make us feel better than a good I told you so. It's right up there. It's right up there. A good I told you so. There's a few things that make middle-aged Black women happier than a good I told you so. So I wanted to make sure I put it out there. That this tater tot thing, I think another thing it also brought up, another discussion that I hope that it brings about is the discussion of consent and the rights of sex workers. Okay. Because basically what this is about is a woman may consent to A, B, C, but then if you D, E, F, that's when you cross the line. Right. I had said this in one of my baseball videos, right? When, with Trevor Bauer of the Los Angeles Dodgers, like the woman said she wanted S&M, but it ended up being more MMA. And then Bauer ends up getting in trouble. Right. So you consent to one thing, but something else happens. Another thing too, with like sex workers and rights, and because we don't often think of them as having rights, because we think of them as less, we think less of them, we think less of sex workers. But the reality is some things may be legal in some parts of the world and might be illegal in other parts. That's where the human trafficking comes in. You may consent to do X type of sex work, but then if you get coerced or get financially exploited because they're holding on to your passport or they're withholding your pay, um, that's where it becomes human trafficking. That's where it becomes kind of kidnapped. That's where the consent issues start coming in. So I hope that this brings about a good discussion about consent. If you consent to, is one of the reasons why Tupac ended up going to jail, right? The woman consented to certain things, but didn't consent to others. Um, right? Consented to being with Tupac, but didn't consent to his friends coming in the room and you know. So again, it's just one of those things where the discussion of consent definitely is going to be brought up, and I hope that it brings up issues when it comes to like sex work. Like some of it is legal in some parts, but some of it's not legal in other countries, and also what kidnapping really means, what trafficking really means. Like those women were free to leave at any time. True, they may have been free to leave the house, but what happens when you are holding their money and their passports and they're from another country because you flew them in your private jet? You know what I mean? And they don't have like an itinerary or any airline they can call because you have their cell phones, you have their passports, and that's kind of where Interpol got involved, right? That's where Interpol got involved because you can't hold somebody's EU passport and not give it to them. You know, if I have a pool party and somebody puts their keys in their phone on my console table, and I say, unless you do business with me in this particular way, I'm not giving your keys and your phone back. That's illegal, right? And that's basically what he was doing. So yes, the women consented to being there, but they did not consent to being exploited in the way that he exploited them. And so I hope that this brings up issues with consent. Yeah, that was what happened with Tupac, right? It was very traumatizing for that woman, where because people kept shaming her, like, hey, you were doing this with him, but she did consent to that. She consented to that, right? She consented to but she didn't consent to the other things. And I think that this we're not going to convince the Tater Tots that consent is important and things like that. They're going to always see themselves as a victim. But I think it's going to give us an opportunity, right, to talk about consent and what that means and what we're consenting to. And I do think that the international travel is great, like Rosie's is saying, but there's certain places where you just have to be careful because things that are Brittany Griner, primary example, um, getting caught up in some international law that you're just not aware of. And it's been proven that Andrew Tate did have police on the payroll. He did, and he self snitched a lot, and it's very interesting. Even with the self snitching, even the fact that he's going to kind of market himself as a victim. And even though he's going to say masculinity out of one side of his face, he's going to be talking about how he's a victim of these women, a victim of the matrix, a victim of out of the other side of his mouth. Like, you see what I'm saying? So just watch for that because it's going to be an interesting time. And I think we're seeing a shift in the internet where these guys are going to keep calling victim. But the reality is we're seeing it with YouTube. We're seeing it with Instagram, Facebook, Reddit. Right. So yeah, that's true. Saudi Arabia can seize your passport. But the EU, that's something you can't do, right? You can't do that in the EU. But we're going to see like how these platforms might be large, but they're not profitable. We saw it with many of these manosphere content creators who have strikes and who have platforms, and they'll say that they're victims of the matrix. They'll say that they're victims, but the reality is they're guilty of like copyright. They're guilty of violating terms and conditions of the use of the platform. They're not victims. They're poor at their due diligence. They're poor. They do poor job of their due diligence. They do a poor job of knowing the rules of the platform. They do a poor job of quoting the books, especially in the productivity sector that they're stealing from. They do a poor job of citing correct sources, or you ain't, listen, a lot of these guys got a lot of strikes and got their videos pulled down during the pandemic because you ain't gonna be misquoting the CDC during a pandemic. Like, that's not, Black women had nothing to do with that. You did that to yourself. Any strikes, how many times have there been strikes and flags and whatever doxing that has happened, and YouTube has done nothing about it? But now all of a sudden you want to go misquote the CDC, or you want to misquote these government agencies, or use outdated information during a global pandemic. You ain't gonna do that and let YouTube know. That's not what's gonna happen. So I just want you ladies to just be aware of it and just peep game. How you're going to see a lot of these manosphere guys feel that they're getting legitimacy and that they're crossing over by getting on these Republican platforms. But in reality, they're about to be pimped, pimped by the Republican Party, just like those same people out in East Texas who are getting pimped by the Republican Party, right? Wanting to talk about pulling yourself up by a bootstraps, but know good and well that they need Obamacare to afford their medications. So, you know what I mean? It's just, yeah, it's a Kansas City shuffle, and I wanted you ladies to be aware. So just make sure that you're supporting really good content creators here on YouTube. We have Leveled Up Single Mom. I think Afrocentric Woman may be going live tonight. And I think Marie Baker just posted, and Samantha Cooker just posted. And there's Black Women Making Money has been having really great tech conversations. Diamond and Silk, yeah, they're cartoon characterish to me. But yeah, them and Brandon Tatum, very cartoonish to me. Candace Owen too, she's a little bit of a cartoon now. But yeah, I just feel like this is a Kansas City shuffle that's going to be happening, and I'm just didn't who one of them were. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I find it very ironic that he's about to get in trouble for something that he accused Hillary Clinton, that Hillary Clinton also got in trouble for doing, right? That nasty woman, she deserves it. Like, the same thing happened to you, right? I don't know. I don't take any of this stuff too seriously. But I do know that politics is going to be something. I mean, I don't know. I just see the Kansas City shuffle coming, and I just want you ladies to peep game and realize that Mocha Mommy told you. Okay? So you ladies have a good night, and check into some of those really good content creators. Keep on focus on those really good Black woman content creators who are making really good content. So just make sure you're focusing on yourself. And 2023 is the year to get your money up. Millionaires are made during a recession, and decisions you make now are going to definitely impact your financial future because of just how things are changing. So I want you to just make sure you're doing what's best for you and advocating for yourself. So you ladies have a good night, and just stay away from the tater tots. Like Mango Peel says, the trash tends to take out itself. This is Mocha Mommy, and I'll see you in the next video.